Okay guys, let's take a look at one of my favorite spots on the lower Laguna Madre, Rattlesnake Bay. Just right out of the mouth of Arroyo, hang the right, and then hang another right, and you're back in the bay. So what you have first, as you can see, the mouth of the Arroyo there. As you're coming out at the Y, you're going to go south. There's Bird Island right in front of you. Then Horsehead Island is to the back right side of you. Caballo Island to the far south of the bay, at the south end of the bay. Then Rattlesnake Island is about a third of the way into the bay. And then you have the entire Rattlesnake Bay. It's a big bay, one of my favorite places to fish. In the beginning, it's probably about 3 to 4 feet deep of water. And as you get to the very back, it gets into inches. Most of the time in the areas that I fish in that bay, I'm anywhere between 18 to about 18 inches on average. When you get to the back, you're talking between 17 and 12, and then much shallower than that. So there you can catch redfish, flounder, trout, drum, and you can even catch sheephead. I've caught sheephead back there in those mud and grass flats. So we're going to be looking at one of my fishing trips here where that pin drop was where I was fishing in the back part of the southernmost part of this bay where I was chasing the reds down in the flat. That's my game. I love chasing the reds in the flat. I love fishing the grass flats and chasing the reds. So this was going to be on one of my fishing trips here that we're going to cover, where I was in the far back bay because we had a really good super high tide, so I was able to get further back than when I've ever been back before. And of course it did produce, we caught redfish all day long back there, Cassie and me. And what it is in the back part of the bay, it is a mud flat. There's a few potholes here and there, but not much. It's mainly just grass sitting on top of a flat of mud. And when you drift in there, you have to be as quiet as possible because a lot of times the grass is above the water and you can see the reds moving between the grass or sitting in the grass waiting to ambush bait fish. And the water is generally crystal clear in the back of the bay, and when you get closer to the channel, of course, it's a mix. It's murky and sometimes clear, just depending on how much the water is churned up. If the wind's blowing, then the water is going to be pretty murky. But always in the back of the bay, the water is generally crystal clear. And like I said, when I fished this time, you have to also navigate around sand and mud flats. There'll be sandbars up front, and then mud banks in the back that you got to navigate around. So let's take a look at this. So here we have it. As you can see, there's grass. But you see the bottom there? That's mud. It's not, there may be a few potholes here and there. There's not that many of them. It's just grass sitting on a flat land of mud. And that water that I'm in there is about 15, 16 inches is what I'm sitting in, that we were fishing in. So I'm going to set the drone, send it up, and let's take a look. Now you get a better picture of what we're looking at. See how it is? It's just a flat of mud, and there's grass spots everywhere. And then we're going to pan the drone out, and you're going to see how far this big mud flat runs. It runs all the way to the back of Rattlesnake Bay, right up against the Laguna Coastal Wildlife Refuge. Look at this. Look at all that. Very good prime area for redfish. Redfish love to hide in those little grassy outcrops and stuff, and they wait to ambush bait fish as they come by. So, and then you see the Laguna Coastal Wildlife Refuge off in the distance there. And then you got a little estuary that spills off of that with some little guts and stuff, which eventually one of these days I'm going to go back in there and fish. Just never have, made the time to explore back in there. But as you can see, that would look like that'd be a good place too to filter fish out. Because back in the 80s, they used to have a lake out there. I'm sure it's still out there, but they used to raise fish way back in the day. I'm talking back in the 80s. They used to raise fish. There's a big lake just right off of the horizon there. saltwater lake, and it has gate systems on it they can release into the lower Laguna Madre. The one gate system heads towards the Arroyo and Arroyo City, which comes out right past the boat ramp. That's that cut that you see. If you fold all the way up that cut, it'll lead you into a set of gates way back up in there, and then that lake is on the other side of that. But they would grow the fish there, raise them there. Once they got them up to size, they would release them out, and then they would swim and find their way down through these little estuaries and guts and stuff, and right into either into the Arroyo or into the lower Laguna Madre, depending upon which direction. And it used to be full of fish. I don't know if they do that anymore today, because I haven't been out there in years. I'm talking, this is way back in the 80s when we used to be out there. And they used to catch huge drums back in there. I mean, big drums, big reds, big trout coming off of those guts, because the fish were coming out of there to go into deeper water or into the bay. So I don't know if the Texas Department of Wildlife has changed their procedures, if they still do that. I think they grow them in tanks now, and then they put them in the back of a truck, and then they ship them off. So let's get into it. Let's take a look at how it looked when I was there that day. So let's take a look at this and see. All right, so here we are. We're sitting back there. This is where that pin drop is that's on the map at the beginning of this video. Look how shallow the water is. The grass is just right below the water. I want to say I was in 16 inches of water, 15 inches of water right there is what I was in. Boat had no problem getting up. I usually on that boat, I think the cutoff is about 8 to 10 inches depending upon the bottom. But it got up no problem there with that's when I had my little 115 Mercury on the back. But as you can see, it takes right off. No problem there. Cassie's getting ready, I'm getting ready, and here we go. So now we're going to show you this back part of the bay. It's beautiful back here. Just look see how shallow the water is? It's very shallow. So if you don't have a really super shallow running boat, I would not attempt to come back here because you're probably going to get stuck. One thing about that old shoal water is that it's a big boat. You know, it's a 21-foot boat, but it can get up real skinny, and it can run across 2 inches of water for all day long, no problem. As long as there's water being pushed through to the tunnel, that boat will stay on top on plane and run. But if you throttle down and you're in, you know, less than 2 inches, you're going to be sitting on bottom. But it does take about 8 to 10 inches for that boat to get up. If you have any water less than that, then of course you're not going to get up. But see, look how clear the water is. And you see you got different colors of grass, some brown grass, some darker bronze looking grass. But those reds, they love this area. They hang out in there, and you can easily see them, and you can sight fish for them because you can see their tailing or moving through the water, and then you can start casting towards them to try to entice them to feed. So we're just back here cruising, exploring it, checking it out. And right up there is Laguna Atascosa Wildlife Refuge, right ahead of me. And we're going to just skirt along the edge there, and then we're going to go into even a further, more southern section of the bay here in a minute. But I'm just back there exploring, and I had enough water to do it that day, so I wanted to check it out and see what it looked like. It was a beautiful day that day. Water's a little bit deeper there, you can see. As you can see, the water got just a little bit more deeper that we're getting into. You see how the water turned murky? So there's no grass there, it's mainly mud. And where this is at, this is that little channel that you saw in the drone footage of that estuary coming off of the Laguna Atascosa Wildlife Refuge. That's where it feeds into the bay, into Rattlesnake Bay. That's why it's all muddy there, because water's feeding in there, and it's deeper right there in that little gut. But then I'm going back to the southern part, and now I'm skirting the edge along that little barrier island between there, that barrier island between the estuary and the Laguna Atascosa Wildlife Refuge. So I skirt along the edge here to check it out. Boat's moving along, no problem. Old shoal water, I love that old boat. Old 1988 shoal water flats boat. For the size of the platform, I love it's a big platform and it gets really shallow. And I'm just talking there, talking about that the barrier island there. So all along right in there is good spots. So I'm looking. That's what I'm looking. So I saw red there. I saw red there. That's why I'm pointing. That there looks like they're moving along the edge of this little barrier island. And then I'm going to go in. Now I'm going to go in between, and then it opens up into a big the southernmost part of Rattlesnake Bay right here. So I'll go between two barrier islands. There, and we go in. It gets real shallow, as you can see. It's real shallow. I would say it's probably, I don't even know if it's even 12 inches deep there. It's less than 12 inches, I can tell you that. It was super shallow that day, so that's why I didn't stop. Because I wasn't too sure how deep it was, because it looked like it was super shallow. And I didn't want to take the chance of getting stuck, so I just wanted to cruise the bay, see what's back in there. And the only thing that I saw that day that was back in that bay, I saw a big, gigantic school of puppy drum running around there, feeding. You know, I couldn't believe it. I came right up on them. And it was a big old school. You're talking, I don't know, it was a big massive of them. So that's why I start turning. And then as I turn and I make the turn, then that's when I see them, because I scare them up and they start moving. But look how beautiful that water is. Beautiful blue sky. Another beautiful day on the lower Laguna Madre. It's beautiful out there. There they were, right there. That's where I saw the puppy drum. They're just right off to the right of the camera. The camera didn't catch them, but there's a big old school there. And they were only probably, I would say the biggest that I saw was probably about 13 inches. Maybe there might have been a keeper in there, 15 or so, but they were back there feeding. That's pretty interesting, because, you know, usually drum like structure, you know what I'm saying? But this is way back deep in the grass flats, and you know they like to eat the little blue crabs and those little type of hard shell crabs. So they may have been back there, you know, working on them along that shoreline, trying to pick some up and get some. So that's probably why they were all back there. But there wasn't any big ones in the whole lot. It was just a big old school of little puppy drum. And now we come out and we're back. We're back on the other side of the barrier island now. And then we're going to head right alongside. Caballo Island's going to be coming up. When you see the fishing shack, that's where Caballo Island is, and then the intercoastal is right past that. And you'll see how the water changes and it gets deeper. You know, it's 3-4 feet by the time you get up to where the where that fishing cabin is by Caballo Island. But when you get real close to Caballo Island, it does get pretty shallow too. But I had already just fished this, so that's why I'm not stopping, because we caught, I think Cassie barked up about, I want to say 4 or 5 reds in this area. And we're already at the end of the drift, so that's why I picked up to move and to go back to the channel and then drift back through again. But I just wanted to take a look-see to see what else was out there before we went all the way back. Right there, I'm saying that's Caballo Island is right there. And then you see the cabin coming up there. We're coming up on the cabin. That sits right off of the side of Caballo Island. And Caballo Island is right before you get to 3 islands. So that just goes to show you, I started by Bird Island there, you know, in this bay. And now we're all the way up to almost 3 islands. So that shows you how big this bay is. This is a massive bay. And there's just all kinds of different areas in there to fish, and plenty of opportunity. I mean, there's plenty of fish in this bay. And you see the cabin right there off the bow of the boat on the right hand side coming up. It sits right off of Caballo Island. And as you can see, the water's getting deeper and deeper, and it's getting more murky. Because why? Because we're getting close to the intercoastal where the water is really moving. The intercoastal is just right past that cabin where you can see off in the distance the island ends. The intercoastal is just right on the other side of that. But I'm going to take a turn right past the cabin, and I'm going to go to the left, and I'm going to start my drift again. And as I'm making the turn, that's what we're going to do. We're going to stay We're not going to pass the spoil banks like you saw in the map. We're going to stay on the rattlesnake side, and here we are. So I'll just let it play out. Still here drifting the mud flats in Rattlesnake Bay. Caught another really nice big red here. I'll pull him out and measure him out, but it's pretty shallow here. Let me measure the water first. And like I said, I've been messing around with them. I've seen them. You know, they've been out here, and I've been throwing at them. And they come up, they bump the cork, you pop it, and then they're real skittish, and then they run off. So I've been working this for a while, trying to make another connection with these. We're finally connected. So that last big red, I caught it in 17 inches deep of water. Right now, this one I caught it in 15 inches, so it's 2 inches less than what the other one was. And it was out here in these shallow grass and mud potholes and open mud flats. But let's get him out. Let's see what he looks like. He's a beauty. All right, so the last big one was 26. This one's 25. Beautiful redfish. Put up a good fight too. Caught him in 15 inches deep of water. And like I said, I've seen them around, and I've come up on them, and they spooked off once the boat got up on them. But there's been like little pockets of little schools of them, like 2 or 3 together. And I'd be casting out there, and they'd come up by the cork, and they'd hit it, but they wouldn't really do anything. They were just nudging around. So, you know, I mean, sometimes it gets frustrating, but that's just part of the game. You know, to stalk them, find them, and then to get them to react to what you're selling. So it finally paid off to stay, you know, stay focused, keep doing it, and don't quit. You catch them. You got to work it a little bit harder back here, but they're back here, and usually the ones that you do catch, they're usually nice size. You'll catch a few small ones here and there. We've been out here, and we haven't caught any hardheads back here in these grass flats. But it's super shallow water, super clear. Sun's finally out. I'm going to continue drifting. I don't got much more before I hit the bank here in the back part of this bay. I've never fished this deep before back here, and this part of Rattlesnake Bay. Because actually I'm close to North Cullen Bay is right there. I just noticed there's a cut. Cullen House is over there where Cullen Bay is, and then there's a cut right here at the end of this bay, and that's North Cullen Bay. So that's probably where we're gonna go next, since we're already this far back in here. There've been a lot of people out here on the water today, and when I pulled up here, there were already 3 boats here, and they'd only come up so far, and then they go back to the channel and drift back into here. And it's only come out so far. I've only been on, this is the same drift that I started at 11:30, 11:40. I haven't picked up, I haven't moved, but we're fixing to, because we're almost to hit the bank. It's right up here. We're gonna try it a little bit more, see if we can get one more. If not, we're gonna just shift right on over to Cullens Bay, North Cullens Bay. 25-inch red. Nothing like it. Out here on the lower Laguna Madre, fishing the mud flats on the lower Laguna Madre.